In fact, in the railways too, I had a very similar experience. It's only been about 5 months since I've been in the railways. But I have had an amazing experience in these 5 months of how Prime Minister Modi in the last 3 years before I came in was able to move the needle from a century-old railway to not only prepare the railways to connect with the most modern technologies, but also start looking at the future. And in that sense, the railway system, which had signaling system, which was probably 100 years old, which had huge backlog in track renewals, causing accidents day in and day out, where passenger amenities have deteriorated over the years, where the morale of the entire railway family was at abysmally low levels. In that situation, to provide almost 3 times the investment that was being earlier done on the rail infrastructure, in a competitive framework where there's a lot of competition for public spending. I mean, typically, politically, every government wants to focus its expenditure more and more towards the social and welfare sector, which gives very quick short-term gain, but may not necessarily be the best way to make long-term sustainable growth of the country. But this government has ensured that money no more is a constraint, investment is not a constraint when it comes to setting the railway infrastructure in this country right. You'll be happy to know that in the last 3-4 years, the CapEx of the Indian Railways has trebled from what it was 5 years ago. Between 2009 to 14, the Indian Railways had an annual average CapEx of about 48 or 50,000 crore rupees. That's about $8 billion. Today, we are looking at a CapEx of $23 billion in the railways annually. And over the 5-year period, we would have invested more money in absolute terms in the railways than has been invested in the last 50 years. And what are we trying to do? We are actually in the railways working with 4 levels of technology. We have a century-old signaling system, or a system which is largely built by the British. The total amount of addition that was done post-independence until 2014 was a very small percentage of the total system that we inherited, but with large parts of technology being 100 years old. Then there's a certain technological intervention which came in about 40, 50 years old, which was things like the Rajdhani Express. The little bit of a semi-high-speed train that we have in India is reflected in the Rajdhani, the Shatabdis and the Durontos, which were introduced in 1969. We have hardly had any real major technological growth in terms of speed in the railways between 1969 and now. In fact, the coaches that we are making and which are being used for so many years have 2 designs. One is an ICF design, an integrated coach factory indigenous design, which is prone to accidents, prone to fatal accidents at that. And then there's an alternate design, the LHB coach design. It's a German design which we had first brought in about 2 decades ago. It's a 30-year-old German design. But even that 30-year-old German design barely accounts for 10% of the coaches that are used in the Indian Railways. And as is the typical thinking that prevailed before we came in, they were used only in the premium trains, the Rajdhanis and Durontos. But the poor man, the common man who travels in the railways, was destined to go in the ICF coaches. Prime Minister Modi took a call that India should discontinue manufacturing ICF coaches. And we've been gradually bringing it down. By June of this year, India will completely stop manufacturing ICF coaches and will only go in for, even now, the 30-year-old design for want of a better alternative immediately. But still a better, safer alternative than what we have been doing all these years. So here we have the second level of technologies which may be 30 years old, 50 years old in the railways. For want of adequate capacity to change over, switch over immediately, we will certainly have to continue with that for some more time. Then we have the bullet train project. Of course, there's a lot of criticism why India is introducing the bullet train in the country. But at the same time, when we brought in the Rajdhani in 1969, there was a lot of criticism even why we brought the Rajdhani in 69. The then chairman of Railway Board had opposed that decision also. That was the thinking in this country. But I do believe the people of India should not be consigned permanently to be using technologies which are decades old. I think the people of India deserve a better deal. And therefore, the bullet train is only the first of many such new interventions where we are going to bring in the most modern technologies to serve the people of India. And that's the third level of technology, that it's a tried and tested technology. By the way, the Shinkansen which we are setting up was introduced in Japan in the year of my birth. And I'm not very young anymore.